Hey, beautifuls. Okay, there's the lens. I'm like, where is it? Where is it? So this is our final, um, I guess there's 3 chapters or 4 chapters. They're really short at the end of the book that talk about shadow play and shadow work. And I couldn't figure out when I was writing, I'm like, where am I going to put this material? Because a lot of times I start with shadow work like as an excavation, but I really felt that declaring sovereignty was coming from a different place. And I think when we do this kind of archetypal work, some of us have already done shadow work or we've worked a lot with a therapist before. So we're kind of primed and ready to go with the shadow work, but I didn't know where everybody would be coming from when they came to the book. So I decided to put it towards the end. And I don't think I have any case studies yet for these chapters, and I'm starting to interview people now to actually get that material, which is really cool. Let's see here. Okay. So you're going to be starting from chapter 8, Shadow Play. I love this quote from Dr. Slattery, who was one of my favorite professors at Pacifica. He says, "To be wounded is to be open to the world. It is to be pushed off the straight, fixed, and predictable path of certainty and thrown into ambiguity, or onto the circuitous path and into the unseen and unforeseen." So, in this chapter, we're going to talk a little bit about vulnerability, the fear of being invisible and the fear of being seen, that we actually have both, that the contradictions are so many in all parts of our lives and business. I'm going to talk a little bit about the attributes of the shadow and how it can function in story. There's a whole section on designing your client, like designing the ideal dream client for you, and don't skip that. I think that's going to be our at least one of our assignments for this week. So part of the shadow too is the whole imagery of going into the underworld, and Inanna was a queen, so there's a lot of, she's associated with sovereignty, but so we did a little bit of this work in the first chapter on sovereignty, because we did talk about Inanna and her journey through the underworld. There's Persephone. There's the Celtic Ceridwen, I think is her name. The cauldron, the mother of the cauldron, she's usually shown living underground in some sort of a cave with her big cauldron. What I've found through doing the shadow work is that I think you can get closer to your superpower. It's almost like where the darkness and the light meet and kind of overlap, that's really what your superpower is. So, let's say your superpower is, let's say generosity. Like, your generosity is something that is what drives you, what drives your business and your brand, and people just you make people feel more generous. So there's something about that generosity piece. And maybe that came out of a wound. Maybe it was a wound of feeling like you weren't enough or didn't have enough. So you learned how to be generous within that wound, and then put a container around it so it wasn't about over giving, right? So it's a funny way of kind of working backwards to find your superpower, but in that sense, I think it can be revelatory in that you're not just going, what are my great attributes? It's like, wow, where am I wounded, and how is this showing up in my life as something really beautiful, as a gem, as a unique aspect of myself. Because not all shadows and not all wounds really are bad. In fact, most of the time they're not. So we go into sex, power, and money. So again, sex, power, money are things that are relegated mostly to the shadow in our culture. Money is bad, money is the root of all evil, sex is dirty, filthy, power is, is associated with the tyrant and all that, but it doesn't necessarily have to be. So flipping these things over a little bit and seeing them from a different perspective is a big part of this week. And then the final chapter is Shapeshifter. And I'm definitely expanding this chapter. The Shapeshifter is really fascinating to me right now. I think there are many of us who really are starting to gravitate towards this particular archetype and seeing ourselves through this lens of the Shapeshifter, and how we, entrepreneurs have to be so adaptable. So I think a shapeshifter archetype is almost a part of the bedrock, the foundation of how we operate as entrepreneurs, because, oh my gosh, stuff changes, the economy changes, so we have to, update our marketing to kind of reflect and change the environment. If you move from one location to another, your environment is communicating with you. You're communicating with it, and that will change your branding inevitably, because all of a sudden your blog posts are going to reflect that new location and those new surroundings, etc. So have fun with it this week. You might hit some points that are maybe feel a little bit ouch, and so be very self-loving this week as you're going through stuff, and I give you guys so many big kudos for making it all the way to the end of the course, and I so appreciate each of you and all that you've contributed and the insights. I'm looking forward to doing some rewrites or doing a second edition of the book this year, probably later in the year. And I know some of you just couldn't really be present with us during the actual course because of all the holidays and now, the New Year's. Right now we're in Mercury retrograde, so of course this is the perfect time to review the shadow. This is a great time when Mercury is wanting to look at the past, when Mercury is wanting to heal anything that's kind of left undone, kind of completing stuff. So with that in mind, after this chapter, you are welcome to go back and do chapters you missed, the assignments and the reading. And if you feel like just letting everything settle, I'm going to be doing in the Facebook group with you guys a full review of the book and the assignments. So what we'll probably do is, I don't want to devote 8 weeks to that because it feels like too much. So I'll devote 4 weeks, and we can do 2 chapters a week. I think we can handle that because it's just reviewing stuff you've already gone through. I'm thinking April for that, because between April 1st and May 1st, 5 planets go into retrograde. So now we only have, I think, 1 planet in retrograde, maybe 2. I think Jupiter's in retrograde right now. So if you're feeling like stuff is moving a little slower than you'd like it, everybody's feeling it. So January, is going to be about reviewing, making sure the seeds of your intentions are really solid before you plant them in the ground. So by the time March 1st hits, and then April, I think, yeah, Venus, 5 of the major planets are going to be in retrograde. So I don't know what that's going to feel like, but if there's going to be a time where stuff gets reviewed and revised, you might want to mark your calendars for April through May, and maybe that'll be a good time to also take a second look at your website, take a second look at your branding. What could be more solidified? What could be more powerful or empowering, however you want to put it. So I'll send an email out with some dates, but I'm thinking April through May or May through June would be a good time for us to do a review. And I think we also have a group, not a group call, but a small group call coming up. And I think I only have 2 people signed up. Yep, so we have small group calls next Tuesday, January 19th. So if you haven't been involved in that and you have time, go to the Facebook group and sign up. I'll again send an email out and with the different times for everybody. So yay, we reached the end. Have lots of fun, and I'll give you a whole week to work on the shadow play stuff before I'll ask for you to post your assignments for the prize. So that would be the 20th of January. So today's the 13th. You have till the 20th of January to do the assignment for shadow play and post it in the Facebook group. Much love. Bye.